Greetings to all my tech heads out there in the KevTechify nation, and if you're new here, welcome. In this episode, we're going to look at the application, presentation, and session layers. We'll be discussing the application layer, presentation and session layer, and then we'll look at the TCP/IP application layer protocols. This episode is part of my series on Introduction to Networks for the CCNA. I'm Kevin here at KevTechify. Let's get this adventure started. Here we have the diagram of the OSI and TCP models. As you can recall, on the OSI model, layers 5, 6, and 7, the session, presentation, and application layer, they are combined into the application layer of the TCP model. Now, the title of this episode was the application layer. What we're talking about here is the TCP application layer, which represents the OSI models of the session layer, the presentation layer, and the application layer. The upper three layers here of the OSI model, they represent the application layer on the TCP model. The application layer provides the interface between the applications used to communicate and the underlying network over which the data is transmitted. Some of the most widely known application layer protocols are the DNS system, HTTP, which is our web traffic, Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, Post Office Protocol, those are our mail protocols, DHCP, Dynamic Host Configuration Protocols, that assigns IP addresses dynamically. We have the File Transfer Protocol that transfers big files, and then we have our Internet Message Access Protocol. The presentation layer is responsible for formatting or presenting the data so that the end user can actually be able to use that data. It's responsible for compressing data. We don't want a lot of blank space being sent across the data network or redundant data, so we compress that data. We also do encryption here at the presentation layer. Some of the protocols that are familiar to us here are how we package up movies. We have the MKV formats, we have MPEGs and movie file formats. We also have our image formats, and they do compression here also, which is our GIFs or GIFs, depending upon how you pronounce it. We have our JPEGs and our PNGs. All of these protocols here work at the presentation layer. The session layer is used to create and maintain dialogues, the conversation that's actually happening, the asking of a question and answering it, the requesting data and sending data. We also handle the exchange of data here at the session layer. The application layer protocols, they tell us what the format is we're going to use, whether it be the JPEG, the GIF or GIF, PNGs, whatever file format we're going to use, it specifies that. And then we also control that information. We have to make sure that both the source and the destination can use those. If one or the other can't use the protocols or the formats we specify, it's not going to work. So we need to make sure that both the source and the destination are able to use that. Now, the source and destination also have to be what we call compatible. They need to be able to talk the same language. They need to be reachable on the network. So we need to make sure of that. And some of the common ones here is we have the name system, or the DNS, the domain name service, and that resolves that domain name you type into the address bar in your web browser to an IP address, because we need that IP address to get to the destination. We don't use domain names to transfer data across the network. We use IP addresses, and that is used by, on the client side, using TCP and UDP on port 53. Host configuration, that is done by the Dynamic Host Configuration Protocol, DHCP. We get IP addresses sent that way. We get other configuration information. And as you can see, they use two different ports. The client uses port 68 on UDP, and then the server uses UDP port 67. Another here application we use is our web protocol. This is our hypertext transfer protocol. It uses port 80, and it's a set of rules to exchange graphics and text and images and sounds and other multimedia across the World Wide Web. It was my pleasure to provide you with this wonderful episode on application presentation and session layers. If you like this episode and you got value out of it, please click that like button, give a 5-star rating, leave a comment. This all helps me bring you more great content. Please take a minute to subscribe to my channel. All my socials and contact information are on my website, KevTechify.com. There you can find out how to get all of these episodes in video and podcast form. In the upper right is my playlist for my series on Introduction to Networks for the CCNA. In the bottom right is one of my favorite videos that I linked just for you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of my series on Introduction to Networks for the CCNA. Once again, I'm Kevin. This is KevTechify. I'll see you next time for another great adventure.